107.5 WBLS, your number one source for R&B.
I told you a little earlier that I'm going to be joined tonight by a very, very special lady, and she has arrived. Miss Jan Gaye, of course, the ex-wife of Marvin Gaye, the Prince of Soul, a man who we all have grown to love and appreciate over the years. She has just released, and I just found out just a little while ago, today is the actual debut of this new tell-all book called After the Dance, My Life with Marvin Gaye. It is a pleasure and an honor to welcome Janice Gaye to the Quiet Storm. Thank you for coming by tonight.
Thank you for having me, Lenny.
I know this is a big, big day for you. Probably a day of great anticipation.
Yes.
In many ways.
Yes, absolutely.
First question I want to know is, and I'm sure you've been asked this time and time again, what made you want to come forth now to kind of give us a better, in-depth, real perspective on your life with Marvin Gaye as his wife?
Well, it's been a long time coming, and I've started and stopped writing books over the years about my life. And I just got tired of having my story told, my relationship with my then husband and father of my children told by other people. And I wanted to tell it myself from the way it was for me, not what it was for someone that may have never met him.
Yeah.
May have had a different kind of a relationship with him. He was my husband.
Yeah, so everyone else pretty much told your story or tried to make an attempt in
Right.
telling your story in third person.
Right.
Never lived in your house, never
No.
traveled,
No.
never had your journey, waking up and going to sleep, as a husband or a wife to Marvin. So I don't know how a person can do that, but obviously the bigger the star, people kind of assume and fabricate a lot of things.
Well, I think people can assume, they can talk to different people that may have known Marvin. There have been some times where I've given interviews, but I've tried to keep it to a minimum because I had always thought I would do a book. I just never really knew when that moment of realization would come.
Well, it's come today.
It's definitely come today.
Favorite song of yours? And I'm sure you had a lot of favorite songs of Marvin Gaye growing up. What fascinated me, I think in one of the early chapters, you said you were attracted to Marvin Gaye when you saw him on TV, and you were under 10 years old. You were under 10. Now, that doesn't strike me as peculiar because, as a kid growing up, I was attracted to a few starlets along the way.
Sure.
But my question is, from the attraction, what really, at that age, what really captivated you about him? Was it his songs? Was it his style? What was it?
It was his songs.
Okay.
It was his style. It was his look. And being 10 years old and being attracted to an idol,
Right.
I don't think it's really that unusual. But when you say attracted, it suggests that I was sexually attracted to him at 10. That was not the case. I was just
Infatuated.
Yeah, I
Puppy
guess
love.
that's a good word for it. Much like the young girls that scream for the Beatles.
Right.
And I screamed for them as well, but there was when it came to
special
Marvin,
about him.
there was just something
Now,
extra special there.
let's warp speed ahead.
Sure.
You got this infatuation about Marvin Gaye, puppy love. How did you meet him?
Well, my mother dated Ed Townsend, who co-wrote Let's Get It On.
Wow.
And had dated Ed for years. And Ed happened to be recording Let's Get It On and some other vocal tracks at the Mo West Studios in West Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And Ed was big on, he liked to brag when he had something really, really good in his pocket. So he called my mother and he said, I'm working with Marvin Gaye. And she said, yeah, sure. She didn't believe him at first. And I didn't believe him. And he had this need to let us know for sure that he was. So he was going to take me to the studio to
Wow.
meet Marvin.
This is like a dream come true for you.
It was. It was a dream come true. It was literally that.
So how many years was that? Like around what age were you?
I was 17. Well, I was that time I was 16.
Wow.
And by the time I met Marvin, I had just turned 17.
Puppy love to the 15th power at 16 years old, huh?
Well, to the 17th power.
And upon meeting this iconic figure that you have been infatuated about, now he's standing in front of you. You meet him. You go into the studio. Are you mesmerized even more?
Absolutely. In awe.
Marvin was, from what I gathered from a couple of things that you wrote in the book, Marvin was always nervous at times right before a performance.
He had terrible stage fright, and that was documented long before we ever met.
And you were very encouraging and really like a reinforcer. And
I did my best to reassure him that he was great, that people still loved him, because he thought that he had lost his audience.
Really?
When he took his break after Tammy's death.
Right.
And
because that was devastating for him, I'm sure.
It was,
right.
Absolutely. He did love her
right.
deeply and never kept that a secret from me. And I appreciated him being that forthcoming about it. And so I did my best to, just keep his spirits up and continue to reassure him. People will always love your music. You are great. You are beautiful. You have a message.
Right, right.
You have the answers to many, many questions that people ask about life, love, sex, politics.
What was the most hardest chapter for you to write in this book? Because it covers from distant lover. I'm curious about mushrooms in the dessert. That's pretty interesting in itself if I know about mushrooms. But what was the most challenging chapter for you to write?
At any given moment, there were different times where it was difficult to write and difficult to look back on certain times in my 10 plus years with Marvin. So I can't really single out one chapter that was more difficult than the other. They were difficult for different reasons. Some were difficult because I was opening myself up to criticism and letting people know that I was no saint. But at the same time, Marvin was a man. He was a human being who had flaws, just like we all do.
Sure.
So
you were 17 at the time when you guys
yes.
linked up. How old was Marvin?
He was 33.
Wow. Okay. In this book, it really speaks about Marvin being an exhibitionist. And what I mean by an exhibitionist is a person who enjoys watching sexual play, for lack of a better perspective.
That would be a voyeur.
A voyeur. Okay. Different terms.
Yes.
So, and you share very openly and candidly about you were sometimes placed in the middle of all that fiasco-ness.
Yeah, there were times. But you have to think about the fact that we're talking about the early 70s.
Things were a little different then, huh?
Things were a lot different then. And it was all about coming out of the 60s into the 70s, finding your way. It was a time where drugs were not as taboo as they are today.
Right.
And sex definitely was not.
Was at the forefront. It was very open.
It was, you can look at any number of films that were done around those times. And the question of sex and sexual freedom and the freedom to explore with your partner was not as controversial as it could have been. So I would say that Marvin and I as a couple did our share of exploration, but I wouldn't say it was anything
different from the norm.
Make anyone's jaw drop.
Okay.
Well, maybe some people.
Right.
But it was just a part of our relationship.
You probably did beyond the unknown when it came to love, because when you found Marvin and Marvin found you, that seemed like to be that unconditional love that we all kind of long for, despite of the age differences.
Well, we did have unconditional love for each other, but we were still human beings.
Yeah.
We weren't superhuman. We had our flaws and our challenges, just like anyone.
Just like anyone.
But you can look back at Jerry Lee Lewis
Mm.
and his bride of 15 years. We didn't go quite that far, but we found a way to make it work. And then there were the times where it didn't work. Just like any couple you ask.
I get it. Jan Gaye is the author of After the Dance, My Life with Marvin Gaye. She's a mom of 2 children.
Yes, my daughter Nona and my son Frankie.
And how old are they now?
Nona is, I can't say, and my son is
Okay.
39.
Well, we are familiar with Nona from her debut record that she had out a few years back. And then most recently, not too far ago, she was in the movie Ali with Will Smith.
She did the Matrix sequels.
That's right.
She did XXX State of the Union. She was in Crash. Polar
Beautiful
Express.
lady. Beautiful
She's
lady.
done some great films.
Yes, she has.
Really has.
And we look forward to her doing some more, for sure.
I hope so.
Question is, can a relationship with a big age difference work out?
Sometimes.
What's the challenge? What was the challenge for you? If there, because obviously you were in a nice gap. You were 17 at the time. He was 33. You said, right?
Right. He was about to turn 34.
I was 34. And what was the challenge?
Well, I think in any situation where you have a huge gap, it's a generation. It's about what culture you've been brought up in, what you have been taught as a child to believe, what not to believe, what's right, what's wrong. And I think I can only speak for myself and my relationship with Marvin, that even though I was 17 in body and he was 33 body, I think any teenager would tell you that you're at the height of curiosity as far as your own sexuality and what life has waiting for you. And that's what happened with Marvin and I. We just came together and made a family and brought 2 beautiful children into this world. And I have a beautiful grandson, and I don't regret any of it.
Her name is Jan Gaye, the ex-wife of Marvin Gaye, with us tonight inside the Quiet Storm.